So Khaya, this is everyone. This is the BreadCrumbs book club, which is a brand new book club that actually was born out of this lockdown madness, where we decided we needed something exciting to look forward to. We actually delayed our first meeting until June so that people could stock up on their wines and stuff, which is exciting. And really the point is to foster this love of reading, this love of literature, whether it's fiction, nonfiction. And it was really important to us as well that we gave a lot of sort of prominence to South African authors and South African voices. And we couldn't think of a better book to actually kick off our inaugural book club meeting than these things really do happen to meet. So thanks again for joining us. It's very exciting to meet
Thank you.
author. And in fact, book clubbers don't expect this every time. This is such a treat to actually have the author join us for the book club session. So perhaps you could just get us sort of started by telling us a bit about, you, and I mean, this is your third book, and what the process was going into writing it.
Well, about me, I don't know. There's so much. I don't know what to say. But I'd say that the process really was, I wouldn't say it was that deep, because I don't think I'm much of a deep person. so the process really for me was really about getting to, because I would really write about these incidents and these events that happened in my life. I'd write about them on Instagram, and people would find them hilarious, or they'd want me to say a little bit more. And the one common thing that I saw was how many people would say, I never read long captions ever, but I always read yours, and I look forward to reading your long captions because they are so entertaining, or I learned something, or they remind me of something about myself. And then I was like, maybe what I need to do is to write a book for people who want to read but are too lazy to read.
Okay.
And so the reason for me writing that book primarily was not just for people who actually enjoy reading, but also to try and get people who would not normally buy a book and read one, to grow the reading community. And so when people, I mean, I got so many comments on social media when people said like, I bought the book and I've never read an entire book in my entire life. And by the time I realized I was halfway, I was like, what? I'm halfway through this book. I've never been like through more than 3 chapters of a book, and I'm already halfway through. And then I was like, okay, maybe this format that I'm creating, which is making sure that I write punchy and short, chapters, will make those people who don't think they enjoy reading realize that reading is something they can enjoy. And that was literally the primary purpose. And the secondary purpose, which is not completely disconnected from the first one, was to make sure that seemingly mundane stories, everyday things that happen, can be written about. And you don't have to write about like the meaning of life or anything like that, and for it to be something that is worth reading about or enjoying. And so that's why for me it was a very easy to read book. And what I heard from a lot of people was also that they found it interesting, the fact that they'd be laughing the one page and they cry in the next. So I just wanted people to feel something, whether you're laughing, whether you're chuckling or giggling or you're annoyed by something that you're reading, but it's just that you feel something, and you feel maybe what I felt when I was going through that moment.
Super. But I mean, not very many of us can speak to having met as many presidents as you've met. Certainly you've got the A-list celebrity friendship WhatsApp group. So you say mundane, and totally get that from the point of view of like day-to-day living and the stories that you read, but you've done some exciting stuff.
I don't, you know what it is? I feel that everybody's done some pretty exciting stuff. It's just that they haven't recorded it. And because I have recorded mine seems like, okay, oh wow, this person has had such an interesting life. No, everyone has had an interesting life. It's just that I happen forward what I have gone through. Yes, yeah, maybe not every day, you will you will meet a president and chat to a president and fall asleep next to one. But everybody has got like some kind of story that they can tell that is pretty unbelievable. But because I really see my life as pretty ordinary. And the thing I always find about life is what makes parts of life interesting are those moments that are not ordinary every day, because it's the thing that stands out. It's like, flip, this is so unusual that you remember it and you feel the need to tell the story or record it. And I think for me, that's what that was for me,
And one of your close friends, of course, Anele, calls you a storyteller. She says, by your very nature, certainly in social gatherings, you're the guy that has the story, whatever that is. Do you think that
that is just so funny? That is so not true. That is what my friends, and I mean this most sincerely. When I look at my friends, they are such amazing storytellers. So, Clarissa, who also happens to be my cousin, he is probably the best storyteller in the country, and I mean that most sincerely. He's incredible. He's charming. He's funny, and he will add, that extra bit of like also spice to any story that he tells, which is just incredible and is unmatched. Like when he tells a story, even Trevor is like, listening, to him because he's such a great storyteller. And then you have Trevor, who's also an incredible storyteller. And then you have Anele, hilarious and great story and very insightful when she says anything and very sharp. So I happen to be actually surrounded by these people who in their own right are probably in the top, like when I mention these people in terms of the abilities to tell stories, probably in the 0.1% of the world in the abilities to tell a story. So I think Anele is being ultra generous when she says that. And this is not me being humble, because I'm not humble.
Did you have to like run the stories by the sort of the different characters before you published the book? I mean, obviously this is a piece of nonfiction, and for the most part, people come across quite well. But were there any characters in there that you happy?
No, definitely. Like I sent like a whole bunch of people as I listen, don't write. No, I wouldn't write it. I wouldn't send them the story. So I'd tell them, listen, this is what I want to write. But unless I thought the story was could be risque, then I would send the person the entire story and be like, listen, is it okay if I mention your name? Or okay. And if, in fact, there was one story where the particular person, the lady, said it's okay if I mention her name, but then she told the husband, and the husband was like, no, don't mention the name. So I didn't mention her name.
I want to try and figure out who that was. I want to figure out which story that was.
You don't know who it is. You don't know who it is, but her husband, I think, is kind of well known and relatively controversial. And I just and he was like uncomfortable with it. So I understood. I understood because maybe he felt that he would look, I don't know, like what in the story. So I didn't. But he was not even involved in the story. It's not even like he'd done anything. He does not appear in any way. This was before they were married or in a relationship. But so, and she mentioned this, and let's decided, okay, no, let me respect their wishes. And so I like to respect people's wishes, even if I'm telling the story. I know I won't be sued for it, but I just want to respect, their privacy if that's what they feel they need, as long as you gave me permission to tell the story as well.
Got you. And I think what I loved so much about the book is it's obviously humorous and entertaining, and in many ways ticks the sort of endorphin of a fiction book, because you're seeing this narrative and these cool stories play out. But at the same time, there's that nonfiction element which has this underlying social commentary throughout. was that just natural in your storytelling that was something you wanted to promote, or was it a conscious decision that you wanted to, you know, speak about feminism? I mean, at the moment, obviously, so pertinent topics like Black Lives Matter. Was that a conscious view?
I almost think you have no choice if you exist in this time but to tell the stories of the time that we live in. And it's not even, I don't even think it's conscious, but it is what life is, and it's what we're going through. And I feel if you don't touch on those subjects, maybe there is a moment of like disingenuousness, or a lack of awareness of what is happening around you in the world at this point in time. So I think it's, it wasn't really conscious, but I think when I was writing a story and it happened to involve that, I felt it was important for me to touch on it as well, to really think about it, even if I was being humorous at the time, because I think as a person who's a writer and who writes and who observes life and experiences life, it is impossible to experience my entire life experience without having encountered the world of feminism, right? And my everyday experience of, because every day I encounter women, every day I talk to women, every day I work with women, I reported to women, my mother, and I can see the lack of equality when it comes to men and women in the world. So for me to pretend that does not exist would show my lack of observance, I think, of the state that we're in. And it also took people close to my life when I thought that I was very aware of how women live. It took people close to my life to say, and because it's very obvious, men can say that, I'm an ally, I understand women, I'm for women's rights, but at the same time, there's so many things that you miss because you're not a woman, you don't experience what a woman experiences. And it was a part, for me, it was partially to acknowledge that part about myself, that listen, I'm a flawed human being. Even though my mother might have been, would not call herself a feminist, but what she's done, she's been a feminist who's told me, like, listen, they are not different for that I need to wash the dishes, that I need to sweep the house, that I can still also do the garden. That doesn't make me any better than my sisters. So I need to cook, I need to knead the bread, I need to bake. And I shouldn't think that like I'm somehow special, where in other homes where you had boys who were taught that like a boy doesn't do that. My mother didn't play around that nonsense. She was like, well, it's okay, it's great that you're a boy, but listen, to me, you're gonna do this thing because you're not any better than anybody else, just because it happened to a boy. And that for me really, gave quite a shining example, when I looked back. But at the time, I didn't realize. And I think were it not for those experiences, I would not have appreciated, what women go through. And another thing is, if I look again and there's a story that I tell about my mother in a village in the Eastern Cape where women didn't ride horses. It's not just not in that village, but generally, women don't ride horses. And no one had ever seen a Black woman on a horse. And so when people saw my mother on this horse, it was a shock. It was a shock to me. I didn't know my mother could ride a horse. And so because she'd learned to ride horses when she was a little girl in secret. And when the village came to stand still, and myself, I was equally shocked and proud, to see my mom doing this, being on a horse. And, and at that time, you don't understand what the message is that you're receiving when you see something like that when you're a child. You only connect it much later. And I think for me, that's what that was. And then when it comes to like, racism and all of those parts, it's because I've lived, I've lived that experience of racism and experiencing it. And I have lived the experience where I have been sexist and being completely unaware that I was, or I dismissed certain things. I'd be like, but that was a joke. But when someone tells you, no, it's not a joke, and it's someone who's experiencing it, it's not my right. I have no right to dismiss them and say that, well, okay, maybe I must not shut it down by saying that, but it was a joke, when I don't understand the social construct and the reason why I feel compelled and I can shut it down when you try to tell me that actually it is not a joke. It means a lot more than what you're saying it is. Right. And I don't know what I just said, but I said it.
Very profound. Part that I also loved when you were chatting about your mom, and I know you've got such a great relationship with her from the stuff you post on social media.
I actually had a fight with her today.
Oh, no. Okay, well, I think you can call her after this Zoom. All right, please. Other BreadCrumbs book club said you had to. But I love the story about you perming her hair. Is that something that you can still do during lockdown? Can people call on you?
It's against the law. So, but I haven't done it in a very long time. But I mean, I used to have to do that, like, all the time. So I was pretty good. I was the only person she could trust to do her hair, and I got really good at it. And I also think it's because I was and am a creative and an artist, and so you like creating and doing things. Maybe that's why I kind of
awesome.
I was okay with doing her hair. Yeah.
You speak to your creativity, and I know you've got a long background at various agencies and advertising schools. Tell us about the cover of your book, because in fact, when I first sent out the email saying it was this, people thought I just put a social media Instagram post there. They didn't actually realize it was the cover. So tell us about that.
So the reason for that was, so like my publisher, that had like they sent me their proposed cover, and I was like, no, man, I know. I was like, I can't.
What did it?
This is horrible.
You remember?
I don't even remember. It was just horrible. And I thought, I cannot live with this kind of yet another boring, horrible cover. And I was like, I can't do it. I really cannot. And I know Donovan Goliath pretty well. And I enjoyed how he was so smart and witty with his design, and he's a comedian, and I know him as a designer before he was a comedian. And I thought, what, I'll ask him to create something for me for the cover of my book. And, I called him up with a meeting at the Goliath Club. It was still open. And I said, listen, dude, I really wanted to design my book cover. And I told him a little bit about, the book. And then he was like, you know what, he had two ideas. And the one was like a Twitter kind of comment thing. And I was like, no, boring. And then it showed me the cover, the Instagram. I was like, genius. And then I was like, that's brilliant. And then I was like, we could have the shout quote, Trevor could say something, and my mom could like, what Trevor had said, or like the post, and all of those. And then that's how the design ended up being. But it was 100% Donovan, and because I approached him and I knew that he would do something amazing, and I still think that is, over the last few years, that is definitely, I think, for me, one of the best book designs I've seen. I know it's my book and I'm being biased, but I think it's one of the best book designs I've ever seen.
No, he's great. And he's been making waves at the moment with all of his quarantine posts. If you guys haven't seen it, we'll share a link later, but changing things like Nike or Adidas or whatever to make it relevant to
he's amazing.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, I'm going to open it up now because I feel like I've been dominating here with the questions. See if anyone out there has any questions based on the book. I love that you say that it's an accessible book for non-readers, and not necessarily people who haven't been readers before, but in our busy lives, who here can actually pick up a book and finish it. I will admit I finished your book today, which is terrible as like the co-founder of BookClub to say. But that speaks to how wonderfully easy it was to just pick up and just immerse yourself back into the short stories. So I'll open up to the floor. If you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself. So maybe put your hand up. Try and keep it nice and engaging. Tegan can start us off.
I don't bite.
Cool. Well, yeah. Hey, it's really nice to be able to meet the author. I think you're my first author that I've ever met. And I really love the book. I think, as Leigh and you have been chatting about, I think it touched on a lot of really important topical things, but in a very light, humorous way. So thank you for that. So I think my question is...
Sorry to interrupt you. A friend of mine who I'll be a very rich Jewish girl said this to me about the book. She said, which I found very interesting. She said, your book made me understand what Black people went through or go through without making me feel guilty. But I became very conscious of my contribution and what I need to do as a person as a result of reading your book.
Absolutely.
Which was very interesting. Just very interesting. I'd never thought about that.
I think it's questions a lot of us are maybe too scared or too uncomfortable to ask, and so it was very educational to see a background that a lot of us have never been exposed to. But my question, I think what I picked up through the book is that you're a very happy, positive, optimistic person, and that's really come through in the past 30 minutes. I mean, you've been smiling non-stop, which is amazing, especially given the circumstances and given that we're all in lockdown. And in the book, you attribute that to a couple of things, but two that that really made me think was that you said one was you don't like to compare yourself to others. And the other was that you have sort of mastered the art of not being in control of other people's actions. And I think those two things are really important in this day and age, and they're really difficult to sort of relinquish. With social media, we're constantly looking at other people's lives, other people's jobs, other people's relationships, and thinking that we're potentially not doing well enough. And we live in a world that's almost geared to put you down and to make you think you're not worth it. So how do you, people can say, don't compare yourself, but it's easier said than done. How do you sort of approach that in your own life?
Well, I wouldn't know, but I think there are a number of factors that have helped me. So I would say that I know it may sound unusual to say that yes, privilege. It's my privilege because from the context from which I come. So in my second book, these things really, to quote myself, I write about how in the village that I grew up in, was, happy, were considered one of the richest people in the village, the families, probably one of the top 2 richest in the village. But if anybody came from Franschhoek, or they came from a township and they came to the village, they'd feel really sorry for me. And they would want to, like Angelina Jolie, I say, if she saw me, she'd immediately want to adopt me, And that is literally, even though in the context where I came from, I was really rich. But in anyone else's context who came out of it would feel like shame for me, and they want to just take me away from this situation they think was horrible, even though I was really happy. And I think that outlook kind of helped me. And the fact that, so I came from this context where I was okay, relatively rich in this village. And the second thing, going to a good school in the then Transkei. It was a really, really good school just before the end of apartheid. And then from there, I get taken immediately to like a white school where I'm like the only Black person in the class. And I think those kinds of things help you to put you in a context where your world, you get to see the world in very different points of views. So it's context of a village, context of a township, context of and also being, for me, being a constant outsider. I think, except for the only time I've never been an outsider was when I grew up and I was born in the village. But everywhere, ever since, I was always an outsider. And realizing that made me, I suppose, feel that I am not in real control of anything that happens, but the only thing that I'm in control of is me, and being in control of the person that is me. How do I make sure that I'm not worried about anything that I cannot control? Or that if I cannot control it, how I cannot have an impact on that thing so that it somehow has an impact on my surroundings, even if I don't have direct, impact. But how can I influence that other thing to influence my surroundings? And I think for me, that is how I have always seen. I have seen, the world. And I think this is my second book, to quote myself, where I talk about when I was homeless and, I'd stolen a Bible. I was homeless. That's this Bible that I stolen, and I lived in Cape Town. And there was a verse that I read, the one night, and the verse in the Bible is about, it's like James, it's James 1. It's James 1. And I used to recite it to myself every single day when I was homeless, and to such a weird extent that I remember it to this day. And it was like, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that it may be mature and complete and lack nothing. If any of you lacks anything, he should ask God, who gives freely and without finding fault. And what that said, I remember reading this thing, and I was like, oh, so it's saying that consider pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. Okay, I'm facing a trial, I'm homeless. I'm supposed to consider this pure joy. So why should I consider it pure joy? So that you may be mature and complete. Okay, so it means that if I do not suffer this trial, I will not be complete, and therefore I will lack if I don't face what I'm facing. So if I don't want to lack, and I want to be stronger, I want to have to persevere, I need to go through this. I need to go through this moment. Whether I will go through it and I'll be okay, I don't know. But the outcome of it is supposed to be very, very positive, so that at the end of it, I will lack nothing. And I think for me, it's maybe it is a natural optimistic nature, but also I also feel that it's partially got to do with the fact that I am also a believer, I think, if you will. So that's how I feel about how I have. So I don't have an answer if it's because I am naturally optimistic, or I've learned to become optimistic, or it's also because of the nature of how I grew up, having grown up from a privileged point of view, in context. Let me put it that in context, and that kind of makes your life better, and you realize it and accept it. So I don't have the answers, but that is a very rounded about answer for you.
No, that's brilliant. I think that's I think we can all aspire to have such a sort of resilient, optimistic outlook on things. It's really eye-opening.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got about 5 more minutes to go, because this is the nice complimentary Zoom package, but we thought that we'd start off with a bit of scarcity value here, that if you're like, wow, we really love this, we might upgrade. So Tegan, I don't know if you've taken down all the names. Khaya, as part of Book Club, what we're going to be doing each month is doing sort of giveaways. And we have 2 200 Rand exclusive books vouchers and 2 bottles of Springfield Estate wine. It was one of the first things that I ordered when online orders for alcohol opened up again. So I'm actually taking delivery of 12 bottles next week. So 2 of those are going to go to someone here tonight. So Tiggs, if you'll just do the draw, let's start with the 2 bottles of wine.
Cool. So we'll start. The first bottle goes to...
by any process. You just got to trust Tigger.
Yeah. I downloaded a Pick Me app earlier. So the first bottle of wine goes to Silver.
Oh, awesome. Silver. Yay. I'm glad it's not Michelle because she's actually in London. So I can't get that to Michelle. So I hope she didn't win anything.
Well,
if I get one, you're going to send it here.
The next person was legitimately Michelle.
Oh, shoot. Okay, well.
She's going to send her wine to Silver.
The budget for sending wine has just skyrocketed.
I'll take
You guys
Michelle's
need
one.
T's and C's.
Silver
I would like to gladly donate mine to the next person.
Oh, okay.
That would be drawn.
Draw.
Okay, great. And there's Celeste.
Yay! We'll make those white wines.
Yeah. Okay, and then onto the 2 books, the 2 exclusive books vouchers, which will help with our next book club pick. And that goes to Lindsay.
Woo!
Very much.
And
I really enjoyed this little session with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And the other person is Nakwanda.
Yay!
Thank you.
Those are our winners.
I'm really glad my name wasn't picked. I would have seen.
I didn't put your name in.
And Mom? Okay, well, Khaya, on behalf of BreadCrumbs Book Club, thank you so much for joining us for our inaugural virtual book club meeting. It was so great to hear your perspectives. We loved the book. I mean, those of us who have finished it can honestly say it was a great read. Everyone else, make sure you finish it at some point. Sesh. But yeah, it was really nice to meet you and chat with you. And
it felt so short, my goodness.
Yeah,
I know, it went so quickly.
Yeah.
It really did. And good luck for the next book. Have you started writing another one?
No. I actually got an email from a publisher today about I threw an idea, and she was like, and then I responded, like she sent this 2 weeks ago. And so she was saying, okay, what do you have to say? So I don't know. We'll see. I have no comment.
Okay, well, maybe that'll be our future book. So good luck if you do.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you so much, Khaya.
Thank you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.